Welcome to Books in 10. Remember, we're raffling an iPhone when we reach 10,000 subscribers. Like, subscribe, and journey with us into this great book. Link to purchase the book in the pinned comments. All right, today we're taking a deep dive into To Kill a Mockingbird, a true American classic. We've got excerpts from the book to really dig into. What were your initial thoughts when you were reading through it?
It's amazing how Harper Lee uses such vivid descriptions to transport you to Macomb, Alabama. You can practically feel the heat and dust.
Yeah, it's not just the weather, right? There's this palpable sense of small-town life,
Yeah,
with everyone knowing everyone else's business.
exactly. And that claustrophobic atmosphere plays a huge role in how prejudice and social hierarchies function in Macomb. For example, the way Lee describes the Ewells' dilapidated house near the dump, it speaks volumes about their social standing.
That's a good point. It immediately sets them apart from the rest of the town, physically and symbolically.
It's as if their poverty and their outcast status are almost ingrained in the landscape itself. It's a powerful visual that Lee uses to establish the social dynamics at play.
Okay, so let's talk about the Finches. They're kind of Macomb royalty, right? At least that's the impression I got from the passage about Simon Finch, the family founder.
There's definitely a sense of legacy and history surrounding them. Simon Finch establishing Finch's Landing highlights their deep roots in the community, but it also reveals their connection to the South's complex and troubled past, particularly the legacy of slavery. Remember that part where it describes Simon buying slaves to build his homestead?
It's a stark reminder of the historical context and how deeply ingrained racism is in Macomb's foundations.
And it makes Atticus's decision to defend Tom Robinson, a black man wrongly accused, all the more significant. He's breaking from that long-held family tradition and challenging the very fabric of Macomb's social order.
Speaking of challenging traditions, can we talk about Boo Radley? He's such a fascinating and mysterious character. All those rumors swirling around him, it really hooked me from the beginning.
Lee is brilliant at using childhood innocence to explore these dark themes. The mystery surrounding Boo taps into that fear of the unknown, and how easily prejudice fills those gaps.
I love how she slowly unravels the truth about Boo through the children's eyes. Remember the gifts they found in the knothole of the Radley oak? The polished pennies, the broken pocket watch. It's like he's trying to communicate with them, offering tokens of friendship.
Exactly. It challenges our initial perception of Boo as a menacing figure, and makes us question the stories we hear about him.
And it makes you realize he's just a lonely soul, misunderstood and ostracized by the community.
His isolation really speaks to the broader theme of prejudice, and how easily people can be marginalized, based on unfounded fears and assumptions.
All right, so the trial of Tom Robinson. This is where the book takes a really serious turn, right? The courtroom scenes were so intense, I felt like I was right there in the jury box.
Lee doesn't hold back in depicting the ugliness of racism and the deeply flawed justice system of the time. It's really through the trial that we see the full extent of the prejudice Tom faces.
The way Atticus dismantles Bob Ewell's testimony, pointing out contradictions and exposing his lies, it's like watching a legal chess match. But what struck me was Atticus's strategy of appealing to the jury's conscience.
Right. He knows the facts alone aren't enough to sway them. He has to make them confront their own prejudices and see Tom as a human being deserving of justice.
And yet, despite his efforts, the jury still delivers a guilty verdict. It's heartbreaking and highlights the systemic racism that permeates Macomb.
It shows how deeply ingrained prejudice can override logic and reason, leading to a complete miscarriage of justice.
And then we have that incredible twist, with Boo Radley emerging from the shadows to save Jem and Scout from Bob Ewell. I totally did not see that coming.
It's a pivotal moment in the story, and it completely reframes our understanding of Boo. He goes from being the object of fear to a symbol of unexpected goodness.
And it's not just about Boo's redemption. It also underscores the idea that good can come from the most unexpected places, even from those we've been taught to fear.
It challenges our perceptions and forces us to reconsider our judgments about people.
The way Lee intertwines Boo's story with the trial's aftermath is so clever. It shows how even amidst the darkness, there can be flickers of hope and compassion.
It's a reminder that the world isn't black and white, and people are rarely just one thing or the other.
And that final scene with Scout walking Boo home, it's so poignant. She's finally seeing him, not as a monster, but as a person.
Exactly. She's learned to see beyond the rumors and fear to recognize Boo's humanity. That's a powerful message about empathy and understanding.
So much to unpack here. Let's take a short break and then come back to dig deeper into some of the other key themes and characters of To Kill a Mockingbird.
You know, one thing that really struck me about Atticus's closing argument in Tom Robinson's trial was how he doesn't just present the facts.
Oh,
He
absolutely.
goes beyond that and directly addresses the deep-rooted prejudices within the jury, and by extension within the whole community.
He knows he's not just fighting a legal battle, but a moral one as well.
Yeah. Precisely. That line about how all men are created equal in a courtroom, it's a powerful statement, even if the reality of the situation proves otherwise.
It underscores the ideal of justice, but also highlights how far Maycomb falls short of that ideal.
The guilty verdict, despite the overwhelming evidence of Tom's innocence, is a devastating blow. Not just for Tom, but for anyone who believes in justice and equality.
It really exposes the systemic racism that was so pervasive in the South at that time. And the tragedy doesn't end there. Tom's death trying to escape prison is a gut-wrenching reminder of how the system was rigged against him.
It's a stark illustration of how prejudice can have fatal consequences.
And yet, even in the face of such profound injustice, Atticus doesn't waver in his principles. He continues to fight for what's right, even when it seems hopeless.
He becomes a beacon of integrity and moral courage, setting an example for his children Jem and Scout, and for all of us reading the story.
Speaking of Scout, her character development is one of the most compelling aspects of the book. She starts as this tomboyish kid full of curiosity and mischief.
And she undergoes a significant transformation throughout the story. Her experiences, particularly the trial and its aftermath, force her to confront the complexities of the adult world with all its ugliness and injustices.
She learns about prejudice firsthand, not just through Tom Robinson's case, but also through smaller, everyday interactions.
Think about the way she treats Walter Cunningham at school, initially judging him for his poverty. It's a reminder that we all have prejudices, often unconscious, that we need to examine and challenge.
Right. And Calpurnia plays such a crucial role in Scout's moral development. She teaches Scout about empathy and respect for those different from herself.
Absolutely. Her influence is essential, especially given the limitations of what Atticus, as a white man in that society, can teach his daughter about race and inequality. Remember when Scout attends Calpurnia's church?
That's such a pivotal scene. It opens Scout's eyes to a whole other side of Maycomb, a side that's largely invisible to the white community.
It exposes the hypocrisy and segregation that define Maycomb's social structure.
And then there's Aunt Alexandra, who represents the more traditional conservative values of Maycomb society.
Her arrival at the Finch household creates a lot of tension, especially with Scout. She's constantly trying to mold Scout into a proper young lady, emphasizing social graces and conformity.
It's interesting how Lee uses Aunt Alexandra to contrast with Atticus's more progressive views. It highlights the generational divide and the struggle between upholding tradition and embracing change.
And even though Aunt Alexandra can be quite rigid in her thinking, she does have moments of growth and compassion.
Like when she stands up for Atticus during the missionary circle meeting after Tom Robinson's death, it shows that even those deeply entrenched in tradition can be moved by empathy and a sense of fairness.
And then we have Miss Maudie Atkinson, who provides a refreshing counterpoint to the more judgmental and gossipy nature of some of the other Maycomb ladies.
She's such a breath of fresh air. I love her sense of humor and her independent spirit.
She's a voice of reason and kindness, always there to offer Scout and Jem guidance and support, especially when they're struggling to understand the events unfolding around them.
And she's not afraid to challenge the narrow-mindedness of her neighbors.
Remember how she defends Boo Radley? She refuses to buy into the town's fear-mongering and insists on seeing him as a person worthy of respect.
It's a powerful reminder that we shouldn't judge people based on rumors or appearances.
That's a central theme throughout the book. The importance of looking beyond the surface, challenging our assumptions, and recognizing the humanity in everyone.
It makes you think about how often we form opinions about people without truly knowing them, just like the town did with Boo Radley and Tom Robinson.
To Kill a Mockingbird challenges us to confront those prejudices and to see the world through the eyes of others.
There's so much more to explore, especially the ending and its lasting impact. Should we delve into that? So the ending of To Kill a Mockingbird, it always stays with me. It's hopeful and heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah, it really is a complex ending. There's the tragedy of Tom Robinson's death, a stark reminder that justice wasn't served. And then there's Bob Ewell's attack on Jem and Scout, which is terrifying to read, even on a second or third read-through.
Yeah, it shows how hate and prejudice can turn deadly.
Exactly. But then, in the midst of all that darkness, we have the unexpected emergence of Boo Radley.
He goes from being this shadowy, almost mythical figure to a real person who steps in to protect the children. Such a powerful moment of redemption.
And it's not just about Boo's redemption. It's also about Scout finally seeing him for who he is, a kind and vulnerable soul. Remember that final scene where she walks him home?
It's so poignant. She's not afraid of him anymore. She understands him.
She's learned to see beyond the rumors and fear, and she treats him with the respect and dignity he deserves. It's a beautiful example of empathy in action.
That ending makes me think about the book's larger message about the possibility of change. Can we really overcome prejudice and injustice? To Kill a Mockingbird seems to offer both hope and caution.
It definitely doesn't offer easy answers. The trial of Tom Robinson shows us how deeply ingrained prejudice can be, and how it can lead to horrific injustices.
But characters like Atticus and Miss Maudie show us the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult.
They represent the possibility of individual resistance, of challenging the status quo, and while they may not always win, their actions can inspire others and plant the seeds for change.
And Scout's journey gives me hope. She starts out innocent and naive, but through her experiences, she learns about the complexities of the world and develops a strong moral compass.
Her growth shows us that education and empathy are powerful tools for combating prejudice. Maybe the next generation can learn from the mistakes of the past.
To Kill a Mockingbird continues to resonate with readers decades after it was published. Why do you think that is?
Well, it tackles universal themes that are still relevant today: prejudice, justice, compassion, the struggle for equality. And Lee's writing is so powerful and evocative. She creates characters that feel real and relatable, and she tells their stories with depth and nuance.
It's a book that stays with you long after you finish reading it. It makes you think about the world around you and your own place in it.
I think that's the mark of a truly great book. It challenges us, it moves us, and it leaves us with questions that linger in our minds.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I'd encourage everyone to revisit To Kill a Mockingbird, or read it for the first time if you haven't already. It's a story that speaks to the heart and reminds us of the importance of standing up for what's right, fighting for justice, and seeing the world through the eyes of others.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining me on this journey through To Kill a Mockingbird. It's been a pleasure exploring this timeless classic with you. Until next time, keep reading and keep those conversations going.